Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Apex Formula One podcast. I'm Josh, and I'm joined here by my good buddy Paul. Paul, how you doing this buddy?
Good. How are you this morning?
Doing good, man, doing good. Just trying to get some coffee in, trying to just think about all the different things we got to talk about this morning. What a crazy weekend, what a crazy race, a lot of unexpected twists and turns with a lot of implications for the rest of the year.
Listen, you called it. Before we get into that, Meredith is in vacation to Europe. I hope she's having a great time. Hopefully she can hear us. I believe her sister is getting married in Italy somewhere. I'm not sure where. But if she can hear this, I hope you're having a great time. But, dude, you called it last episode. You said you didn't know what was going to happen. This was one of those races that it was literally a flip of a coin. And I think we saw that with some of the results. The people that we thought were going to do good did terrible, and the people we seemingly counted out had a great race.
Yeah, we definitely had some crazy twists and turns. Qualifying, having some rain, having some little wet conditions there, really turned the tide. And obviously, with all the red flags, it was really up to who was just going to have the best lap at the best time. It was really up in the air, completely different than a normal qualifying session. So I believe I saw that was the most red flags ever in any qualifying session in the history of the sport. So what an interesting way to start off the race weekend. So
I was just going to say that. It was 6 of them, right? 6 red flags? Or
I believe.
yellow
I don't
flags?
remember the number. I don't remember the number, but it was a significant amount, and it definitely changed the dynamics of qualifying. I'll tell you one thing I did see, as they said that qualifying lasted longer than the Grand Prix was scheduled to last.
Yes. Yeah, it seemed like it went on forever. And with 7 races to go, things are getting tight, and I have a feeling this is going to go down to the last couple races of the year.
Yeah, just so we have a reference point when we're talking here, so the fans kind of know what we're discussing. The top 3 right now are all within a decent margin of each other, a little bit closer than maybe we even expected from the third place position. So right now we've got Oscar Piastri in the lead, right? And he is only 25 points away from his second place competitor, which would be Lando Norris. So the McLaren boys are within 1 race worth of points from each other. So we expected that to be close. I think that everybody kind of saw them being within a race, if not even fewer points away at the beginning of the year. But the surprise to me here is Max Verstappen is now in the discussion for the championship once again, which, Max Verstappen is inevitable. He seems to just find ways to win. He always just seems to find ways to drag points out of that Red Bull car, no matter whether it has, a good upgrade or not. So he is only, what did we decide, 69 points off of the lead. Just the lead alone is 69 points. So that is about 2.8 races of points. If he was to win every race and the McLaren boys were to DNF, he would have to win the next 3 races, which is very likely that he's going to be getting some high point scoring over the next couple of races. So I think that this could turn into a 3-way battle.
Absolutely, and we got some great tracks. We got, Singapore next weekend?
We got Singapore and then Austin.
And then Brazil, another one that's one of Max's favorite tracks. So you could never... For the last few months, Max was never part of the equation just because that McLaren car was doing so well. But you can never count him out. And that's just what's so crazy about this sport, and just shows what a generational talent he is, because being down 69 points, he is very much in this race.
Yeah, and if you had asked me a few weeks ago who I thought would have been that third place competitor, I would have said George Russell. He's been consistently getting points. I mean, we saw it this weekend. He got second place here. So I would have thought that George would have had a better chance at being in that second place position, but he's all the way down now in 4th, and he's, quite a bit behind Max at this point, at least a couple of races worth of time and points.
George is at 212.
212, and Max is at 255. So
255.
Well, yeah, so there's at least a few races worth of spread there. So just incredibly impressive that I feel like we haven't really discussed Max Verstappen and his performance much this year. He's been consistently getting points. But only getting a couple race wins now in the last few weeks. It's not like he's not been at the forefront of the conversation, and here he is sneaking up yet again with just a few races left in the year. So very interesting. But to get into the actual race itself, we had a very interesting Starting grid, we had. I'm gonna go to the qualifying real quick. The surprises just out of the gate for qualifying is obviously Max getting the pole position that we were not expecting him to get. Carlos Sainz turned it on there. Q3 was really just anybody's race. There was a late safety car. I believe it was it Charles or was it Oscar that ended up wrecking towards the end of Q3.
I can't remember off the top of my head here.
One of the two of them.
Oscar.
One is Oscar. Okay, so Oscar wrecked with just 2 minutes left, just enough time for the cars to get out through a cool down lap and then to have their fast lap. Terrible decisions by McLaren. This is an absolute disaster class of a weekend as a total for McLaren, but I think it really started right there in qualifying. Oscar, made a mistake, pushed the car a little too hard, trying to do a little too much maybe on a track that had some wet conditions in some places because of some lingering rain. But the decision to put Lando out first with just enough time to do to get a warm-up lap and then his hot lap, on a track that had some wet conditions that you would normally want to see some other cars kind of dry a racing line for you before you go out. It just seemed like a very poor decision on the strategy front for McLaren to put him out first, really hampering his opportunities, as we'll discuss later, to gain some points on Oscar. So terrible decisions for McLaren there. Opened the door completely for some names that we don't normally get to talk about in a Q3 session, let alone up here at the top of it. So we've had Max Verstappen at pole position, and then Carlos Sainz somehow in a Williams in second, and then Liam Lawson in a Racing Bulls in third. Those are teams that we do not see in the top step of the qualifying session.
I mean, I don't know where I'm still flabbergasted by what Carlos was able to get out of that car. Finishing qualifying in second, Lawson in third, and even Yuki, somebody who's has struggled to get out of Q1 and Q2, putting that car in sixth. I mean, man, it really goes to show how good these drivers are, and that margin of error is just so small these days.
Yeah, so the teams are extremely close. This is a great example of given the right conditions, any team can really have that breakout moment. We didn't expect to see Williams on the podium at all in any capacity, but yet here we are with the opportunity for Carlos going into the race in a second in the front row. So
absolutely.
It's a great opportunity for Carlos, and he definitely capitalized later on. So any final thoughts on qualifying? Anything with McLaren that you got?
No, pretty much it. It seems like McLaren is shooting themselves in the foot, and we'll get into that here in a second. The Ferraris, I don't really know what's happening to them. They had great pace in the practices, but come qualifying, it just wasn't there. Charles had an incident there, and he couldn't finish. But yeah, Max once again doing what Max does, and I've seen reports that they've been able to find some pace on that floor upgrade. So kudos to them for doing that. Max is just driving his heart out right now.
Yeah, Max is just driving great. Obviously, it helps that they've got one of the best strategy teams and the best lead strategist probably on the grid. So I think that definitely helped them come qualifying and definitely throughout the race, because he was just gone away.
And with Christian Horner leaving the team, you didn't know which direction this team was going to go. Were they still going to keep that upward trajectory? Were they just going to pack it in and send it in for next year? But no, they're really working hard. Lauren Mackey is really bringing some good, a new, if you could say, fresh breath into this team, fresh air, and they're really showing some pace. Drivers like Yuki, who was really struggling throughout the year, is now hopefully showing some fight there.
Yeah, Yuki Tsunoda's best qualifying and then best race finishing positions of the year. So maybe there's some hope there for that second Red Bull seat that we haven't been able to really hype up at all over the last several years, let alone this one. Maybe this is the chance. If Yuki can continue to put in some good performances, this might help secure his seat for another year, maybe. We've already heard the rumblings of Isaac Hadjar taking his spot at the main Red Bull team, so time will tell on that one. But the better that Yuki can do over the next 7 races, the better that his chances of staying in the grid are.
And rumor has it it's going to be Isaac going to the Red Bull, and it's just going to be Yuki and Liam fighting for that other seat. So hopefully they can both keep producing and make that decision hard at the end of the year.
Yeah, and I think that's got to be Yuki's goal right now, is just to make that decision as difficult as possible, because Laurent really likes him. I think he rates him very highly. He's spoken very highly of him in the media. But as of a couple weeks ago, we discussed on here that he wasn't willing to make any comments considering Yuki's future. So that leaves that door open for some changes, and you gotta worry that Yuki may have to do something special here to stay up.
Absolutely. But let's kind of get into the race. It had some fireworks right off the start. Our boy Oscar Piastri. I don't want to read too much into it or say the pressure got to him. I think it was just a one-off. I think we're all entitled to have a bad day, and his was the definition of a bad day.
Yeah, I think at the beginning we didn't know really what happened to him. There's so many things that happened in that first lap to the poor guy that we had to kind of break it down throughout the rest of the race to figure it out. But ended up having the jump start, and it seemed like he stopped himself and tried to get his launch back, but he just he blew it. The anti-stall was hitting, and he couldn't get away. Ended up in last coming out of turn one. So that was really rough for him. I think after that he was just really trying to push himself in the car a little bit more than its capabilities to gain some positions back in that first lap to put himself back in any sort of points paying position. So ended up making the mistake and locking it up and going straight into a wall. So ended his race extremely early. Really unfortunate for Oscar. It's one of the few times recently we can say that Oscar's made just a blatant, huge mistake. That it's very uncharacteristic of him. And like you said, I think it's a one-off.
Yeah, very much out of character for him. We usually don't see this type of mistake from him. But yeah, I think it's a one-off. I don't think this is going to go into Singapore. I think he's really good at having ice through his veins and just being able to recover from this. But it was just totally off character, and his jumping the start even messed up Fernando. Fernando just took his lead, and he jump-started and got a 5-second penalty for that. So it was just two drivers you wouldn't expect that to happen. Just had that issue.
Yep, and Oscar was given a 5-second penalty, but because he did not finish the race and was unable to serve his penalty, normally penalties move over to the next race as in the form of a grid drop penalty. Now, because this was only a 5-second penalty and he was unable to serve it, it's basically he got a freebie. The FIA does not roll over 5-second penalties to the next race if that's the only penalty that there is. If it's just the 5 seconds, they just let it be. So kind of got away with that one. I was surprised. I honestly thought that would roll over to the next race. I didn't know that until researching for this week's show that he would not have to serve that penalty in any capacity. So very interesting on that one.
It was shocking when he told me because they really, there's some penalties that go over from one race to the other, and this one they're just like, all right, this one we'll just forgive this one, I guess.
Yeah, it's very strange. And I know that's a written rule. It wasn't like a steward's decision or anything, but just one that I guess does it. That's a very strange one that we probably just don't encounter very often. It's very unlikely to have a driver get a 5-second penalty and then DNF. Usually they're able to serve it at a pit stop at some point.
Yeah. But yeah, the rest of the race, there was some good overtaking. That little battle between Lewis and Isaac was fun. Isaac was really giving it to him, but Lewis kind of got the better of him a few times. But yeah, what did you think about the rest of the race?
Yeah, I thought the first stint was fun. It was definitely eventful. A lot more close wheel-to-wheel battles than we normally see. After that, it kind of became, after the pit stop, we knew Max was far and away leading that race. There was really no question on Max's front. We never saw him again. After that first pit stop, it was like up to 20-something seconds at some points of a lead. So he ended up 14 seconds ahead of George during his just flawless drive. So.
And George,
yeah.
we didn't even know if he was going to show up because reports said that he had a bit of a stomach bug, and even some of the radio messages throughout the weekend, you could hear that he was not sounding the greatest and didn't feel the greatest, and still put that car in second place. I have to ask this question. What more can George do to get that contract with Mercedes for next year? Because, yeah, he's not my favorite driver and I don't like him, but he's doing everything right. Any team would be lucky to have him, and yet Toto just doesn't seem to want to pull the trigger on a long-term contract for him, and I just don't understand it.
Well, you never know what's happening behind the scenes. There very well could be a contract offered, and they're ironing out details. That maybe George wants another year that Toto doesn't want to give him, or maybe the money's not right. You never really know what's going on behind closed doors. But I would be shocked to see George not get an extension. I mean, he's been driving. He's been phenomenal this year. This I think is his best year in the sport. It's hard to argue his consistency right now. He's just, the amount of podiums he's racked up this year, the amount of points that he's able to get has definitely been impressive to say the least. So, I think we'll get a contract for him at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I
don't
sure
know
hope
when,
so.
but
Weirder things have happened, however, but I sure hope that he can get that contract for next year.
But so Carlos, great race, ends up on the podium in third.
Dude, where did that pace
huge get
come from?
Not really sure. I mean, obviously he was able to be overtaken by George with some strategy in the pit stop choices. Was he under? I believe he was undercut, but I'd have to go back and look. But yeah, it doesn't really matter. Who cares? Williams on a podium is the biggest surprise of the weekend. So unexpected. I think Carlos was so excited to get it. His radio message after the race, was. Did you see the video of him sprinting in
Yes.
Parc Fermé to go see the team?
Yes.
Yeah, you could see just how much it meant to him. Very, very excited to get that one. So, great get for Williams. I'm sure that's a huge morale boost for a team that's been kind of dealing with go ahead.
And that's exactly what I was going to say. I think for the last handful of races, he's just not had a very good showing with that team. And I don't want to say he lost confidence in the team, but when you're constantly towards the back and barely getting out of Q1 to Q2, it's just a human instinct to have self-doubt. And I think this was him having confidence in that team going into 2026 and James having confidence in him that he made the right decision. Overall, this is a great morale boost. And this might be, and there's still 7 races to go, so I don't know what's going to happen. This might be the biggest shocker of the year. I didn't think – did we truly think that we were going to have a Williams podium this year? I don't know if I did. So it was just great to see him in a Williams, putting it in a place that I can't remember the last time a Williams was on the podium.
Yeah, it had been a while. I don't remember either. Let's look it up.
And even, I mean, it was just also Alex, it was just to see his contact with Franco. He tried to make a move on a corner there that just wasn't there. So I don't know if Alex was trying to overcompensate by how good Carlos was doing, but overall, I'm really impressed with that Williams team. And the story behind the unicorn on his helmet was really heartwarming. So hopefully he keeps that sticker on his helmet for the rest of the year, and hopefully the unicorn brings him good luck.
Yeah, it seems to have worked so far. Yeah, I saw that story as well. Very, very heartwarming story. The kid's really cute.
Absolutely.
So that was, and I think I would gamble to say he's going to keep it the rest of the year. So that will be a
Dude,
cool thing to
yeah,
kind of
I
follow
would.
and watch
Yeah,
and see if he does it. I'd keep it on there forever if it means I keep doing that.
100%. Were you able to find out when the last time Williams had a podium?
Yes. 2021 George Russell at Belgium.
Okay. All right. So it's been, we're going on a handful of years now. So
yeah, I mean, we're going on. George Russell has raced for Williams since then.
On a team that most people have just written off, and such a historic team with such rich history in the NF1, it's good to see them in this conversation now towards the top, and hopefully they can keep this momentum going into Singapore and the rest of the year.
Yeah, no, we've been so excited to talk about Williams throughout the offseason and then the beginning of this year. It seems like James Vallis has done a really good job of kind of riding that ship and giving them some direction. But while still being humble and saying that, hey, look, 2025 is probably not going to be our year. We're focused on 26 and beyond, and we're trying to build something for the future. But, even if you're trying to build something for the future, just to get a podium like that and the way it happened and to get and for it to be Carlos, honestly, you hate that you don't get Alex to get the podium because he's been on that team for so long and stuck through it. But to get Carlos, who's had what seems like some confidence problems throughout the year with that new car and the new team, just seems kind of like, it's all coming together for him. I'm just very excited for Williams. I'm excited for Carlos and to see what they can do over the next couple years, because I do think that James has got that team in a very good direction.
I think James has had everybody buy in, which is the most important part when coming to a new team and bringing in new drivers. But let's kind of what did you think of that Ferrari performance, man? I really thought they were going to finish higher than they did.
I don't know. Ferrari, they are kind of, while I am surprised that they finished 8th and 9th, I thought that they probably could have picked up a few more positions. You know, you normally don't think Yuki's going to be able to perform, and you don't think that a Racing Bulls is going to be that high in the order either.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily surprised. Their pace just isn't there. They're not fast enough. They're just not quick enough. They don't have the pace to be battling right now, and they're just kind of I hate to say that, but they're in a league of their own. They're no one's really close to them in either direction. They're not close enough to be battling at the front, but they're also just fast enough to stay out of the midfield drama. So it's unfortunate. I don't see them doing much else this year. I think that's pretty much what they've got.
No, and they lost the second place in the constructors to Mercedes. They're at 286 and Mercedes is at 290. But even if I don't know if you got a chance to hear some of the radio messages between Lewis and his engineers, it just seemed like he was asking questions that he just wasn't getting answers to. And he's like, why are we on these tires? Why is this strategy going on? And I don't know if that's just Ferrari. They're just not going to talk on the radio, and they're just wait till the debriefing room when the cameras are off and it's just them talking. But it's just tough listening to a driver ask questions and not get the feedback that he needs.
Well, I think to me the part that really strikes at home enough is the post-race interview and comments made by Charles, right? They were discussing the not swapping that position back, right? Like they had asked the boys to switch positions to try to let Lewis on fresher tires go after Lando. And they wanted him to swap back, right? Lewis said that the message came too late. He tried to let off and let Charles kind of come through, but just he said that he was focused in on the car in front and was trying to make the pass, even though he knew he was probably not going to happen. And he was trying to get the position on that final straight, but just kind of ended up stopping or slowing down too late and not letting Charles through. What really struck me as the most telling out of all this is Charles' comments after, when he said that he doesn't really care when it's 8th and 9th, right? He was like, if it was higher positions, maybe I'd care, and we'd had discussions about this as a team, but he was just like dejected, and he was just whatever, it's 8th, 9th, I don't care that he got another point than I did. So it's dismissive, and you would expect if they were battling for positions, that would be a little bit a hot topic, right? So that's what kind of struck me as like they've not necessarily given up, but they understand that at the end of the day, it does not matter.
No, unfortunately, and a team that came in with such hype this year with two great drivers, you thought they were going to do better, and it's just tough to see this. But at the end of the day, it's kind of over for them. Hopefully, they can rebound in 26 with a new car, with everybody comes in with a clean slate and go from there. If I can switch the topic real quick, to me, the biggest shocking thing of this whole weekend, more than Carlos getting on a podium in a Williams car, was Lando did not capitalize on what should have been his time to shine and his time to show the team that he deserves everything put into his basket. And I know the team screwed up with the pit stop at the end, and I think there was a problem with one of the front wheel guns that got stuck there. And that kind of put him behind the eight ball a little bit there. But if you go back and watch the race, which I did this morning, he was so timid in some of those spots. It feels like he's trying to wait for the perfect opportunity to pass instead of just finding that small gap and going for it. And finishing 7th when seemingly he's got the fastest car out there, it just seems like a miss for him. Granted, he got 6 points over on Oscar and kind of somewhat closing up that gap, but I think he dropped the ball this weekend.
Well, I think that in some ways he did, and I'll come back to that, but I don't think it helped that his qualifying position was what it was. I think the team failed him in qualifying. I don't think that he was given the best opportunity to show the pace of that car by going out and qualifying when he did. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's some kind of part of their papaya rules that if one car goes out early, the other car is just not supposed to drive as aggressive, right? To try to maximize the damages or to limit the damages of the team, right?
If
Because
that's
this is still
true,
a team game. Because you got to bring the other car home.
Yeah, if that happens to be true, that's a slap in the face. Like, I understand team rules and papaya rules, and we want to do this as a team together, but you got to capitalize, man. That gap, Max is closing up that gap, and you're gonna mess around and find out here soon enough what Max is really capable of doing if you're going to continue to do this.
I mean, yes, but when you're starting, it's not like they were in the front row of qualifying. It's not Max, Lando, front row, Oscar's in, the second row, third row, and goes out in DNFs. And, well, you're trying to battle for a race win. When you start off and Lando's in seventh and Max is in first, you're not battling for a win. You're probably not battling for a podium at that point. So I can see the team's perspective where they really don't want to put any more risk for, losing out on more points. And I know it's only 6 points, but really, regardless of pace of that car, with that qualifying position, and Azerbaijan is not exactly, well, it's hard to overtake in most tracks, but Azerbaijan isn't known for a particularly, good overtaking track. It's not like he was going to pick up a lot of those positions. It's unfortunate. I think the qualifying killed him. It killed his race. I don't know anything if they do have those team rules or not, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were just trying to limit the damage to some levels. Not to say that he's not allowed to overtake, but to say that, hey, don't put the car in positions that are possibly dangerous.
Yeah, you might be right. You might be right on limiting the damage, and don't go for a gap that you think might be there and end up wrecking the car. And now we got 2 cars that don't get any points for this weekend. So there might be a level of truth to that. But like I said, I was just hoping to see more. It's just tough to see a V car, a Racing Bull, and a Red Bull in front of him, being Liam and Yuki. But
hell, and a Williams. I mean, there's several teams
and
really
a Williams, yes.
And that's the beauty of qualifying. I hate to say that, like you've kind of mentioned it before on the show. Qualifying at this point is almost more exciting than the races most of the times.
Unfortunately,
and this is exactly why. Unfortunately, exactly because we love a Grand Prix. We love Formula One. We love seeing these teams being able to battle, wheel to wheel. But when the cars are the way they are, with the inability to overtake due to the aerodynamics, this is the consequence. You have a crazy qualifying, and you've got teams that have no business getting podiums or to be in the top 10, or that totally shakes up the order. And there's really no chance to. Where in years past, maybe if you get a crazy qualifying session, you've got a good chance at being overtaken at some point during the race due to pace. You don't really have that anymore. There should be no reason that the Williams gets second place after qualifying second. Like in most other years, he would have fallen down the order, gotten high points, but definitely not a podium. So it's just a very strange dynamic right now in the sport, and it's different than what we've had before.
Yeah. But any last final thoughts on the race before we move on?
No, I think it was definitely. I mean, obviously, I called it last week that I thought it was going to be up in the air and very.
No, you
interesting,
really
right?
did. You hit it right on the nail, right on the head.
But even I, and no one could have, but even I was not expecting the drama that we did get. Right, like it was. Who would have guessed that Oscar Piastri, your number one in the constructors or in your driver's standings, to go out on the first lap? Who would have thought that on a weekend that McLaren could have mathematically won the constructors championship, they would have had a DNF and a driver barely get points? Who would have thought a Williams would have been up there? You can go on and on and on about the crazy circumstances that happened this weekend that nobody could have predicted.
And this is why you had such a hard time with your prediction, which we're going to get into the points here in a second, because you called it. 90% of what happened was not on my bingo card of what happened, and even your dog is just losing it because he wasn't sure what was going to happen either. But let's kind of get into the points here. We went into last weekend with you and I with 13 points. Tied for first with 13 points, and Meredith with 12. Meredith predicted that Oscar was going to win, followed by Max and Lando, and Williams in the points. Well, that top 3 didn't happen, other than Max winning. So she doesn't get any points for her top 3, but she does get a point for Williams finishing in the points. I predicted Lando, Max, and Oscar, and Haas in the points. And my prediction did not happen. You, on the other hand, Josh, predicted Max would win, Lando in second, and Oscar in third. And you had this wild prediction, which I thought was crazy. You said 5 different constructors were going to get points this weekend. And holy crap, dude. You should go get a lottery ticket because you hit that one. And I think it was what, 6? 1, 2,
6,
3, 4. Yeah, 6 teams. So you even sold yourself short. So you get 2 points. I get 0. So the new points is you're at 15. I'm at 13, and me and Meredith are tied at 13. So you are back in the lead with 15 points.
Are those points? Are you reading those off the notes app?
Yes.
Were those were last week's points, right?
No, Meredith
Those
was
are-
with 12. You and I were tied with 13.
Okay. All right. So those are updated. All right. Cool.
So as of now, you are in the lead. So hopefully, Meredith and I can have a better showing in Singapore.
Yeah, another one that could be crazy. I love that track. I love Singapore. It's one of my favorite circuits. So I'm excited for next weekend.
Yeah, and we'll come out with another episode next week with our predictions and everything. But it's a very tricky one in the simulator. I know it's a very fast track, but it's one that's got some tricky corners that I have a hard time keeping it on track. So this is a very fun track for sure.
Yeah, it's unforgiving. It's a street circuit, which obviously adds a level of difficulty due to the fact that it's not a racing circuit. There's not a good thick line of rubber laid down on that track. So throughout the practices, they really do try to get a racing line established. But it does punish you for getting off the racing line where there's no grip. And once you're off the racing line, if you do contact any of the walls and any of the barriers, they're concrete. There's no runoff, very few runoffs, and really nowhere to go. So very difficult.
And let's not forget the big element in this, the heat. We saw that Drive to Survive when George had that panic attack with how much he was overheating and he had to go straight into the ice bath. So the heat is a huge element that these drivers have to deal with. So that's going to be another interesting thing to really think about.
Yeah, and that does well for some cars, and for other cars they don't do so well in the heat. So we know that the Mercedes is known to have overheating problems. It doesn't particularly like to be run in the heat. So they may not be able to find that level of performance that they've had recently. So
yeah, so it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
But hey, did you see the video after the race? And Meredith kind of filled me in on it. I didn't realize how bad they got hit with rain out there in Europe, in Italy specifically. So Carlos and Charles shared a flight back home, and their private jet had to get grounded. They ended up having to rent a minivan to drive home. When I spoke to Meredith a few days ago, they said they've had some torrential flooding, and even a lot of the trains going out of wherever she was at her resort got canceled, so they were scrambling to find a rental car to get to the location and where her sister's getting married. So that was interesting to find out, in a fun video of seeing Charles and Carlos in a minivan driving through Italy.
Yeah, that was definitely interesting. I think that Carlos may not have been having as much fun if he hadn't had a podium. I think he's still got some jealousy of the whole, of getting bumped out of Ferrari. It's obviously not his favorite thing in the world. So having a good performance under his belt before he had, gives him a little pep in his step, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
The only other thing I saw that I want to talk about is, did you see the post from Alpine?
No, what was it?
So basically they posted and said, that was a rough weekend. And they said, we don't really have much more. Let me read it exactly word for word, because it's even worse than me just trying to tell you what it said. It was very defeatist. All right, it said,
I know that team has just been struggling. Flavio has not been that breath of fresh air they were hoping he would be.
All right, yeah, it said, okay, so here's what it says. Very short, very sweet, but definitely does not bode well for the rest of the year. It says, with our current package, we know the last few races will be tough. Time to see out 2025 and keep pushing back at base. Basically saying they're not going to upgrade the car anymore. They don't have anything left in the tank, and this is it. This is their car for the rest of the year, which is crazy. We knew that there would be teams that would throw in the towel at some point to start maximizing their 2026 But as far as I know, this is the first team that's publicly come out and said basically, hey, we're done. This is what it is. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I think you've heard it with like Ferrari. Like, listen, there's not many more upgrades, but we're still battling. We're still trying to figure things out. But to just throw in the towel for an Alpine is just shocking, really, especially when you just signed Pierre Gasly to a long-term deal. You're not really showing a vote of confidence there, and I don't know how they're going to figure out who their next driver is. I know Jack Doohan is out of the race. It's between Franco and their other reserve driver, Paul Aaron. Am I right
Paul
on
Aaron.
that? So it's going to be interesting. That team is just in turmoil, and I don't see them doing much of anything for next year either.
I mean, with next year's a new year, but I would agree with you. That team is in turmoil. With them, to me, the biggest sign was them suspending their power unit program. It just really seems like they're either struggling with money and they're having cash flow problems, where they are trying to cut where they can, or they just have no faith that they'll be able to keep up with the engineering required to be competitive.
I got a feeling it's a little D, all the above.
It could be. It could very well be.
So it's just tough because we hold Pierre Gasly to such high respect because he's such a great driver. But when the team is giving him crap, and it's just tough. And Franco came in with he had such a great showing with Williams that now it's like, is this really who he really is as a driver, or is it just that car is awful?
I think the car is just awful. I don't think that there's a lot of support there for the drivers to really push to be their best, because they don't have anything really to push. I think you get to the point where the car is you're just trying to drive it to can complete a race, let alone try to push for positions. And at this point, they're just not competitive. You hope that Franco can stay in the sport, because I do think that he gave us enough glimpses of a good thing with Williams that I do hope he can stay.
Yeah. Hopefully, fingers crossed, because I really do like him. I think he's got a really good personality, but only time will tell. And Flavio's going to do what Flavio's going to do. So
yeah, we'll see what Flavio does with his off season, because there's got to be some changes going on. That team is just rough.
Yeah, 100%. Something's really got to give here.
Are they? Let's see. I want to look at their points. Dead last with 20 points.
Man, that's tough to see.
Yeah, another one that's still surprising is Haas. We really thought Haas was going to have a better year. They looked to be one of the stronger midfield teams early on, but Sauber had a podium, had some good performances, and Aston Martin's looked fast recently, and that's really knocked Haas out of the midfield.
But if you ask me, I still have higher hope in a Haas car than I have in an Alpine car.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, also I saw we just talked about it before we hit record. Roman Grosjean is going to get he's going to get a chance to drive that Haas car, so it's going to be nice to see him back in an F1 car, even though it's just for show and just giving him one last track time after his incident in Bahrain.
Yeah, a little pity test. Like, hey, man, sorry the last time you drove an F1 car you blew up, but
you almost died.
So, yeah, here you can drive it again just to get, that bad taste out of your mouth, I guess, because I can't think of anything else that they would, any other reason.
It's still a cool gesture. I know that Mercedes was trying to get him in that car, too, in their car a couple years ago, and that never really came to fruition. But yeah, I did see James Hinchcliffe is also going to get a chance to hop in the seat of a Haas car, so that'd be nice for him to kind of race or get on track with a car like that.
Yeah, you like to see them kind of branching out on who gets tests. It's nice to see them looking outside of just their development program.
Absolutely.
To get some testing time, yeah.
But yeah, I think I'm good with topics for the day. What about you?
Yeah, I said I was looking over just the F1 app and see if there was any crazy stories that popped up, but I'm not really seeing anything worth talking about. I'm sure we'll get something as soon as we stop recording that'll pop up that we wish we would have talked about.
But yeah, I think next episode we'll be back next week with another one talking about Singapore. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Meredith will be joining us for that one. I don't know when exactly she gets back into U.S. soil, but I'm sure it's going to be in the next few days.
Yep, and then we've got Singapore to look forward to, and then we'll be live in Austin 2 weeks after that.
Yes. In 20 days, it just hit me last night that we're 20 days away from going to COTA, which is going to be our first time at an F1 race for you and I. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited. I
Oh,
can't
yeah,
wait to see
I'm
all
super
the
excited.
all the content we put out, all the trouble we get into, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it'll be a blast. I'm excited to see Cars on Track live in person.
Oh,
So it'll be
absolutely.
very, very fun.
And it'll be the first time the three of us are together in the same room, so that's going to be a great time.
Yeah, that'll be fun as well. So we'll have hopefully plenty of content to post throughout that weekend and then a couple weeks following it. So that'll be hopefully good for
Oh,
us.
100%, 100%.
All right. Well, do you got any last closing thoughts here before we wrap it up?
No last thoughts on me. I hope everybody has a great week, great weekend. Stay safe, everybody, and we will be. Please engage with us on social media. All our platforms are out there. Feel free to comment, like, subscribe, rate, review us, all the good, fun stuff. And let us know how we're doing, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We're always here for criticism. So engage with us on social media, and we will be back with you guys next week with another fun-filled episode.
Yep. We'll see y'all next week where we talk about old Singapore. So we'll see y'all later.